Okay, so today we're going to talk about a subject that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is organization. I actually really do love being organized. I love creating systems of organization, so that's something that I really geek out on, and that's cool. And for some of you guys, you may hate that, and that's also okay. The reason that I did this first last year was because even if you kind of hate it, doing this part up front always pays off in the end because it's so much more. Well, it's so much more not thinking, if that makes sense. It's really getting rid of that part up front. So when you're in the middle of trying to get a project done, you don't have to think because you're just shooting and dumping cards and then you're done because you already did this up front. And it's not fun necessarily unless you're like me and you're weird and you really like it. So let's say you bought your hard drive, right? I'm going to plug this in, and this is a clean hard drive. There's nothing on it. So if I could figure out where these little things are. Okay, so let me get a screen recording going. Let me show you how to do that real quick too. So for all of you guys, really, because if you don't have a MacBook, if you don't have a laptop, or you just don't have a Mac laptop, and you don't have Final Cut, obviously, because it's not Mac, you'll need to use the computer in the lab. So that's not what I want. So basically, if you go to the Launchpad down here, what'll come up is this, actually. Let's kill that and bring it back up. Okay, so this is kind of how the first page looks normally. If you find this folder, this little square, Other, that's usually where QuickTime is. So you'll open QuickTime, and then under File, there's a button called New Screen Recording. And obviously, I can't click that because I'm already screen recording, so that would, be pointless. So what'll happen when you do that, what'll happen is a little box will come up with a red dot, and you'll click that, and then a prompt will come up on the screen that says either to click the screen to start recording or to click and drag to do a selective recording. And you don't want to click and drag because then I can't see anything that's going on. And this serves two purposes. One is for me to see that you did the project on your own computer, or that at least you did it, and I can tell the differences between you and another person if you use the same computer. That way I know you're not cheating, which is important. But also, if I see anything that could be problematic or is something that maybe you're getting hung up on, or I just noticed something where oh, I bet if I told them this would really help them. I just want to be able to help you guys learn. So, and with me not being there, it's much easier if I can see what you're doing. That's one of the best ways for me to help teach. So now I have my hard drive, right? So we could do one of two things first. We could either create our Final Cut library, or we could create our filing system. And usually I create the filing system first because I usually shoot first, and then I start the project. So what I'll do is I'll go into my hard drive like this, and then for you guys, what I would do is start out by creating a videography folder. So you can put your name. Obviously don't put mine because it's weird, but I would make a videography folder, and then inside that folder, the command that I'm using is Command-Shift-N. So when I hold Command-Shift-N, a new folder comes up, and then I can name it. So I'll open the John Videography folder, and then I will make a new folder with Command-Shift-N, and then I will type Project 1. You're going to have 13 of them, so this is just a way of keeping all of this stuff separate and organized. Separate if you already have an external hard drive, bravo, smart move. This will help keep everything separate and organized, compared to everything else, just so you don't lose files here and there. It saved me a ton of brain power that I could divert to other things, and I just, it's one of those things that once I got used to doing it all the time, I don't want to ever not do it. So inside the Project 1 folder, I always, when I do a project, I will split between at least two things, and that's audio and video, because my camera just does not have a good microphone on it compared to what I'm using right now. So what I'll do, Command-Shift-N, audio, Command-Shift-N, video. And sometimes if you're working on a project like for the Worldview conference and I'm going to make other things like social media posts and whatever, I'll make another folder that's like other assets. And that's cool. You know, like if you want to take, like you get somebody to send you some Photoshop files, and then we can make like little graphic things that would really technically be video, but kind of play out on social media more like a moving picture, like a graphic or like a GIF or something like that. It's really a video, but it's not made with actual like camera video. It's made by moving things across a timeline that's divided up by frames to reference time. That's all it is. It's like keyframing things to like move within a certain amount of time, and that's video, whatever. So if let's say we're doing a video project, inside the video you can do a couple different things. If you know the people that you're working with, you know, closely, you could do like Nate. This is how I did it for the Worldview. Well, this is not how I did it for the Worldview conference. This is what it would have looked like if I would have done by name and then camera. I've done that before, like IBC Live. I did it by who was shooting and what camera they used, and even like what lens, just so that I had that reference information in Final Cut when I drug stuff in, because it kind of built a folder system for me. And I'll teach you more about that later. But you can also do just by camera, or just by name, or by for the Worldview we only had 2 people, so I had the main angle and then I had a slider, so I used the slider angle as my B-roll. So I really only needed to know that I had a main angle and a slider to go back and forth between for each individual video that I did or was able to shoot there. And that's just, you know, you'll learn what works for you. But having this kind of system in place is what's really going to save you when it comes to like making lots of projects. Like if you go to a church and you're making projects like every other week or every week, you know, like doing like announcement videos for church, or you're doing like social media stuff, like communications for that. Sometimes like if you get good equipment, you can build like the microphone and all that stuff into your setup for your camera. And that saves a bunch of time, and it's awesome. Not everybody can do that, though. And when you have the opportunity to be in a soundproofed room where you have shotgun mics and like professional lighting and whatever, like it's better. Like it sounds better when you use that as opposed to just the camera audio. Yeah. So I like to, when I have to, separate the audio. I don't really get into a lot of situations where I have to make multiple folders to keep the audio separated, but it does help, especially if you're just like, if you're in like a wedding, or you're doing a recap, or you're doing like a rally where you have to do like multiple different things, and you just want to drop stuff and like keep shooting because you don't want to miss things. Or like, let's say that we're going to start doing stuff for IBC, like at Connect or stuff like that. Like, and everybody needs to dump all their stuff onto a hard drive for whoever the person is that's supposed to make the project. Like, you don't want people just like dumping footage. It's way easier for you to know like what cameras you're working with, who's shooting, where they're shooting, and you can set up, like plan ahead. Hey, you stay over here, you stay over here, you stay here, and just shoot what's around you. That way you know what you're getting, and it's easier to find footage because you know what everyone was doing, and you know like where to look. Like, oh, if I want shots from the middle of the congregation, I'm going to go for this folder, not this one, because I'll spend an hour looking through this for no reason. And nobody wants to do that. Nobody got time for that. Like, we got other projects we got to do. One thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to make a screen recording folder. And that's where you'll save your screen recording as opposed to any of the video footage that I may give you to download, or any other things like that where maybe I give you a library. And we'll talk about libraries in a second, where I will give you the library with all the footage inside it already, and you won't necessarily need to make a folder system for that project. You'll just need to keep your library in there separate so you know where to find it. So let's get into Final Cut. I'm going to open Final Cut. Final Cut libraries can operate kind of 2 different ways, and that can be addressed in the preferences. So Final Cut come up to the top menu, open the preferences, and the import tab here is where some really important stuff happens. You can either choose at the very top where it says files to copy to library storage location. So basically import them into the library, and then wherever you take this library file, that footage goes. So it's inside the library. Or you can say leave files in place. And that's where what we're doing, what we just got done doing, will pay off big time when it comes to file management or storage saving. Because if you leave files in place, basically what you're doing is you're telling Final Cut to build a skeleton, and then all of the stuff is actually over in these folders over here or wherever, but it's not in the library. It's actually in like something else. So let's make a library, okay? So we're going to go to Final Cut, File, New, Library. And I'm actually going to make this library outside of my videography folder just because this hard drive is dedicated specifically to this class. I just got it today, so I'm pretty pumped. So let's say this is going to be videography. Wow, I can spell. Videography 1. Okay, save. Now, I've created a library, and let me double check my preferences. What did I have it saved to? Leave files in place. So if I were to see, we have our videography 1 library here. If I were to take some video, you know, like let's just say there's video in these folders, and I pull them over into Final Cut, right? And I drop them in, and all the video shows up in there. What Final Cut's going to do is not actually import all the footage, making the library file much larger. It's just going to reference the video files from here in the folder system, which is why it's so great for you to be able to save all of these projects separately with their own video folders and stuff like that, because then you know where all the files should be, and you don't have to have duplicates, basically. Because if you import the files into the library, you're basically doubling everything. And it can get really big really fast. Like you can go from like a 4 GB library to like a 600 GB library in a couple of days, just depending on how much time you spend editing, because Final Cut will actually make copies of every single change that you make. And that can get crazy so fast. So we're not going to get too much into that part yet. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I just stopped the screen recording that I did of this part, just so I could make sure that this makes sense to you guys, because I love you. Now, the problem with this part is that if I don't have these recordings, I can't show you what's on my screen. Like, I'm shooting this live right now, but I have to record my screen if I want to show you what I'm doing. So I'm going to start another recording here, and the recording has started. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to import, this is what I'm going to have you do, is you're going to do two recordings. One recording is going to be you making your file system in whatever your drive is going to be. So if you bought an external hard drive, cool, use that. If you have a laptop, cool, use that. Put it in the movies folder and make sure that you name it Your Name Videography. I prefer all caps, so if you could do that, that would be cool, just because I really like that and it makes me happy, but you don't have to. When you get done building your system, stop your recording. So make sure you start it, obviously, or you're going to hate yourself. Start your recording first. So go into QuickTime, go to File, go to New Screen Recording, start your recording, make sure you click and that this little square thing up here is working, and then build your file system. You're pretty much only going to need like your videography folder, project 1, and then screen recording inside that. But you're going to have 2 screen recordings because that's what you're going to post, is your second one. And I'll show you how that works now. So you take your first screen recording of you building your folder system. So Your Name Videography, project 1, screen recording, and then cut it off. And then I want you to make your Final Cut library and import the media. So I'm going to go find it now. Extreme SSD, John Videography, Project One, screen recording. Look at that. It's there. Unbelievable. Amazing. So basically what I'm going to have you do is once you import, also pro tip, before I go any further, pro tip, this little guy right here, I always got really angry when I started out in Final Cut because these video files can be so long looking. Well, if you go to this thing right here, this will actually like allow you to change what the thumbnails look like of the video files in your like little folder. So I can make them really small, which means you can see so many more and like weed through your footage and stuff a lot faster. But let's actually, you know what? I skipped something because I'm too excited. Let's address this over here. So we've got our footage in, but we imported it into this event. But John, what's an event? I'll tell you. An event is kind of a way of separating footage inside of a library. It's not a project, so it's not actually something where you're building stuff. An event is more of like a subfolder system inside the library. So the library you could think of as an actual library, and an event could be like a section. So like the science fiction section or the self-help section or the religious section. What you need is, if you want to, you could do this multiple ways. You could do your videography library with a bunch of different projects or events. You could do your library with a bunch of different events. So let's say that I'm going to make a new event now. I'm going to call this event Project One. Now, if I go into Project One, there's no media in there because we imported into this one, the original one. Anytime you make a library, there has to be at least one event. And that's how Final Cut's hierarchy of folders and stuff separates footage when you're working on a big project. So let's say that you're working on this giant project. I'll use Worldview Conference, for instance. If I wanted to keep all of that in there and then just like make different projects or whatever, I could do that and still have all of the footage in there. So I could have like all of Brother Gallion and all of Brother Kilman and all of Brother Henderson all in the different events where like I shot their individual classes. I still have access to that all inside one library without having to have a bunch of libraries open, which just takes up more memory and it's bad for your computer and it makes everything slow and it's just a bad time. So you can have your library have all these different projects inside your events, or well, let me rephrase that. You can have your library have a bunch of different events if you want to, where everything's inside the one library. The only problem is that means that it all has to be open at the same time. So that kind of comes down to whether you are working on a big project or a little project, whether you really need to have this open or that open. That's something that you can kind of figure out for yourself, honestly. But for the sake of this, I just really want you to understand the difference in them. So I'm going to delete this and then I'm going to re-import the media. Now I can import it into this event. And here's what your assignment is going to be. Your assignment is actually going to be the screen recording of you cutting down your first screen recording. So your first screen recording is going to be you building your file system inside of your folder or your hard drive or wherever you want to put it. It's just going to be you screen recording yourself building that file system. Then you're going to finish that screen recording, save it inside of your file system, your name, videography, Project One, screen recording. Then you're going to start a new screen recording and you're going to open Final Cut. You're going to pull in that screen recording into your new library. So you make your library. You don't have to rename your event. I'm not going to make you do that. But then you're going to need to create a new project. So we've got our footage in, but there's nothing down here in the timeline. Why is that? Because there's no project. So the project is actually what happens in the timeline, like the actual thing that you're working on. The project. File, New, Project, and I'm going to name this project Project 1. Maybe I should have named the event Event 1. That probably would have been less confusing, wouldn't it? So now you see inside the event we have a projects drop down, and then we have this date where basically that's just footage, you know? So project, you can have, let's do this as an example. So let's say that we have 2 projects, okay, inside one event, just to help you understand how this works. We have 2 projects now, right? So I'm going to go into project 1. Okay, I have project 1 open, double clicked, it's open. So now I'm going to pull recording 1 down onto the timeline. Boom. So I'm doing a lot on my computer right now and it's being really slow, but that's okay. So you can see here, I have stuff on my timeline, right? Because I'm in project 1, as you can see in this center area. Now, if I open project 2 by double clicking on it, timeline's empty now. We're still in the only library that I have open, and we're in the only event that I have. But you can have multiple projects or multiple different timeline. They're projects, basically. They're just different things that you're working on inside the same section. So I'm going to reopen project 1, and then I'm going to right click on project 2 and delete it because I don't want to be confused anymore. I just want to do this. So this is what you're going to do. I only made that second project to explain to you that you can have different projects inside of different events and all of that stuff. But basically, really what you need for right now is you need to, when you go to do this yourself, when you make your library, just make your library, call it videography, put your name on it if you plan on keeping it somewhere. If you need to have a friend help you or something like that, you want to use their laptop, like if you got a BFF that will let you share, that's cool. Just, keep track of your stuff, keep your name on it. That's fine. But make your library. It'll come with an event already. And then go to File, New, Project. Make your project. And then drag your screen recording into there. And so what I'm going to have you do here is use a basic function of Final Cut, which is the cut. So I'm going to scrub by grabbing this little timeline needle. I'm going to scrub through all the stuff that I did while I was setting up. And I'm going to find the place where I clicked on my hard drive. There it is. I see it up now. So I'm going to find the place that I clicked on my hard drive and brought it up. And I'm going to hit, I don't want that thing in the bottom there. So I'm going to wait till that goes away. Oh, there it is. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the clip that I want to cut, and I'm going to hold Command and hit B. Now you can see on my screen that now one side of it is selected. And if I hit delete, it goes away. So what I essentially did was I just took that long video file and I put it in the timeline and I chopped the front end of it off because I don't need it. And that's obviously very useful for a ton of reasons because we're messing with video. Like, we're going to do a lot of cutting and moving things around. But that's basically all you're going to need to do is cut. And once you've made your cut, once you've made your cut, I would say find the end where you finished making your hierarchy. So once you've gotten to the point where you've made your folder that says screen recording and you're done with that, just cut it again. Boom. So your screen recording will show me you cutting off the front and back end of you making your file hierarchy. And go back to the beginning like this. Click, make sure that your playhead is here at the front, and let it play all the way through. There's me talking. So you'll just let it play through so that I can watch it, because I don't necessarily want you to have to upload multiple things to YouTube because that can get kind of old after a while. Obviously, if I can see in Final Cut that you've already done the first recording and then cut the end off of both of it, you only need to submit the one screen recording. I understand that this can be kind of confusing. It will get better over time. And honestly, like with anything new, it kind of feels like rocket science until it doesn't all of a sudden. And that just comes through repetition and time. So the more that we do this, the more it's all going to make sense. But it is important for you to be organized. And if you have any questions, get with Nate. Nate's knowledgeable. Nate knows what he's doing. And if Nate doesn't know what he's doing, then he's fired. I'm just kidding. If you need me, you can ask for me as well. Oh, yeah. Should probably mention the due date, right? Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to have projects due by midnight on Sundays. That way you have time through the weekend to work on stuff. If you need to contact me or you need to contact Nate and get with him or with me to kind of go through stuff like troubleshoot any problems that you're having, any questions that you need answered. That gives you some time to do that. Also, we need to discuss in Populi what day you guys would like me to make myself available to you for direct contact via Zoom so that we can do some troubleshooting. I can do some screen sharing and show you guys some stuff if you have questions or any other things that you want to learn about. Mostly want to make sure that any questions that you have are addressed during these Zooms. And if you do have questions, make sure to get with me so that I can take that time to record it and make sure that those answers are addressed and that information made available to you by recording that during the sessions. So yeah, good luck and have fun.